Okay, mathematicians, we are working on lines and angles. I am reviewing lesson 1. These are the types of problems that you will see in Delta Math. Now, my problems look different than yours, so you have a couple of options. You can actually just watch the video and see how I solve these and start to work on your Delta Math assignment, or you can jot some of these down in your notebook. Remember, when you go to take your final assessment, I will let you use your notebook, so whatever is in your notebook will be there for you. So, up to you. Okay, number 1 actually starts to join everything that we've been doing. So, first of all, I notice that I have 26 degrees up in this angle. Since this is 26 degrees, I'm going to highlight it. I know that this is going to be the same angle. Now, we proved it yesterday by actually drawing the angle in, and then I rotated. So remember, I put my point on the vertices, or the vertex, and then I rotated around, and I noticed that these two angles are the exact same measurement. Now, what I can actually do is I can actually do a translation. I can actually slide that down the transversal, and I notice that this angle is the same as these two, and they have names, but I'm not really worried about the names at this point. I just need you to recognize the similarities. Okay, and if I rotate up, there we go, another vertical angle. So what that tells me is all 4 of these are the exact same measurement. So if this is 26 degrees, this is 26 degrees, this is 26 degrees, and this is 26 degrees. Now the challenge is I need to know this one. So that is where our last piece of information in our notebook is really helpful. Remember, let's see if I can get up there. Remember, a straight line is always 180 degrees. So I can count on that measurement to help me figure out the rest of the problem. Remember, if I have 26 degrees here, my line here is a straight line. That means from here to here is 180 degrees. Also, I have a straight line here, which means from here, from here to here is 180 degrees. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of math here, so it's an operation. I know that this angle and this angle equal 180 degrees. So I know that my first angle plus my second angle are going to equal 180. I know that one of my angles is 26, but I don't know what this angle is. So there's a couple of ways you can solve this. So think about how it is in your head. I tend to just do subtraction. So I am going to go ahead and get my calculator. I notice that I have 180 degrees total, and I'm going to minus what I already know, 26. And that gives me 154. That means that this angle right here has to be 154 degrees. And that is the answer of our problem, 154 degrees. Now, that is a little bit a tougher one to start with, so if you got that, you're going to be good. But here's a few more. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2, I notice that I have 151 degrees right here. I also notice that look more closely. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. Number 3, very similar idea. If I know that this is 153 degrees, I know that by using my patty paper if I need to, my vertical angle is also 153 degrees. I also know that if I sketch this angle and I slide it down the transversal, X is also 153 degrees. So in this case, X is 153 degrees. Now, in the Delta Math, you'll have a few more like this to practice, but I'm going to jump over to the ones that are a little bit more challenging. So let's go ahead and take a look at, let's see, 7, you're still finding angles. You can do the same thing. If you'll notice, about a third of the way through the assignment, you're going to start getting some equations instead of actually just degrees. So we're going to have to do some solving. So when I get to my next problem, I notice here that my two angles, what do I know about my two angles here? I know that this angle, if I sketch it on my patty paper and I slide it down, it is actually the same thing. So that tells me that this angle is equal to this angle. So I'm actually going to write that. I have that angle, this angle, let's call it angle 1. 9x minus 15 is the same thing as 8x minus 8. Now, we do have to do some algebra here. So if you are struggling with equations, I can actually do a small group with you to help you with equations, either during class or come see me at Night Zone. But I am going to go through this kind of quickly. Like I said, ask if you have questions. When I solve equations, this is really from Math 1 and Math 2A. So you might need a little bit of a reminder. I notice that I have variables on both sides. I cannot solve my problem with variables on both sides. So I'm going to have to move one of the variables over. I always usually move the smallest one because then I usually don't have to deal with negatives. Now to move a term, I have a positive 8x. I'm going to subtract 8x. And whatever I do to one side, I need to do to the other. So I'm going to minus 8x. Now I always rewrite the problem so it's not so messy. 9x minus 8x is just 1x. Minus 15 equals negative 8. Now, my goal is to get this x all by itself. Now, since it has a 1, I actually have already got it by itself. I just need to remove that negative 15. In order to move that negative 15, we have to turn it into a 0. So if I have a negative 15, I'm going to add 15. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So now I have x, that becomes a 0. Negative negative 8 plus 15 is going to equal 7. Now, like I said, if that was a challenging piece, I need to do a small group with you. So in this case, x is 7. And that's all they want me to find, the value of x. X is 7. Let's go ahead and do another one. Okay, notice in number 12, I have a angle here. And I'm going to slide it down and realize, oh wait, they are not congruent. But I do know that if I go ahead and sketch this one in, so where would I go? Okay, here we go. So I know that this is 5x plus 7. I also know that this is 5x plus 7. Because this angle and this angle are congruent. I also know that this angle plus this angle equal 180 degrees. Notice our straight line here. Since we have a straight line, 9x plus 5 and 5x plus 7 will equal 180 degrees. So now I'm going to go ahead and write that equation. I know that if I take 9x plus 5 and I add it to 5x plus 7, I will get 180 degrees. Now the cool thing is I have all addition here, so I really don't need to worry about the parentheses. I'm going to combine like terms. I have a 9x and a positive 5x. When I bring them together, I get a 14x. I also notice that I have a positive 5 and a positive 7. When I bring them together, I have a positive 12. Again, if this is challenging, I will do a small group with you to work on equations. I have 14x plus 12 equals Don't forget that part over there. 180. I now have a two-step problem to solve, so I'm going to draw my T. I need to get x by itself. That is my goal. I want to have x isolated. So in order to do that, first I have a positive 12 here, and I need a 0. So I know that I'm going to subtract 12. I always rewrite my problem. I now have 14x. That is a 0. I don't need to write it anymore. And 180 minus 12 is going to be 168. I still need x by itself. That is 14 times x. I need this to be a 1, and I can do that by dividing it by 14. 14 divided by 14 is a 1. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I'm going to grab my calculator again, and I'm going to do 168 divided by 14, and my answer is 12. So x is 12, and they're asking for x, so I get to stop here. Oops, sorry, you couldn't see. 168 divided by 14 is 12, and since they asked for just the value of x, I can stop my problem right here. Okay, if you understand this, you can go ahead and stop the video. I am going to do one more, actually maybe two more, but only stick around if you need to. So let's go ahead and take a look at number, well, you guys don't have this one. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this one. I notice this one is just like my last one. I notice that this is x plus 9, and this is congruent to this angle. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down that x plus 9. And then I'm going to realize that this is a straight line, right? And if you need to, highlight the straight line just so you can see it. Sometimes I have to do that. So I notice that if I've got x plus 9 and x minus 3 will equal 180. So I'm going to go x plus 9 plus x minus 3 equals 180. I'm going to bring my x's together, like terms. I have a positive x and a positive x, so I have a 2x. And then I have a positive 9 and a negative 3. When I bring them together, that's 9 minus 3 is a positive 6 equals 180. Now I'm going to subtract 6. Remember, I'm going to do my t. I want this to be 0. So if I have a positive 6, I'm going to subtract 6. That becomes a 0. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I always rewrite the problem. 2x equals 180 minus 6 is 174. And now I need to get my x to be a 1. So in order for my x to have a coefficient of 1, I'm going to divide by 2, because that's 2 times x. I'm going to undo it. It is now a 1, and I don't have to write it, so I have just x. But since I divided this side by 2, I need to divide that side by 2. And let's go ahead and do that. 174 divided by 2 is 87. So x equals 87. I'm going to write it over here so it's easier to see. X equals 87. Now let's do one more. And this one's a little bit trickier. Actually, it just looks more complicated, but with what you've learned so far, you'll be able to do this one. I notice if I sketch my, oh, you know what? I wanted to do another one that had, oh, here we go. Let's do number 15. What I want you to notice is, are these congruent or are they equal to 180? That's always the question. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch that. I'm going to translate it down, and I'm going to rotate it. And I notice that my two angles are equal to each other. Right? They're equal to each other. So I actually can write that. So I'm going to write 2x plus 29 is equal to 9x plus 8. Now notice again, I have variables on both sides, so I need to move them together. It is usually easier to move the smaller one. So if I have a positive 2x, I'm going to subtract 2x. They become 0. Done. But since I subtracted 2x, I'm going to subtract 2x. Now, I always rewrite my problem. I've got 29 equals 9x minus 2x is 7x plus 8. Now, I need to isolate my x and get it by itself. So I'm going to get rid of this positive 8 first. If this is a positive 8 and I need it to be a 0, I'm going to subtract 8. It becomes a 0, done. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other, so I'm going to subtract 8. I'm going to rewrite my problem again. 29 minus 8 is 21 equals 7x. I need to get x by itself, which means I need to have a 1 there. To make 7 into a 1, I'm going to divide it by 7. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And I get x equals, because this is now a 1, I don't have to write it anymore. And 21 divided by 7 is 3. And there is my answer. Okay, go ahead and try Delta Math. If you need help, let me know, or come back and watch this video again.